WLRN and State Impact Florida. John O'Connor is a reporter for State Impact Florida, a project of WLRN and WUSF. John writes for the State Impact Florida blog and produces stories for Air on Florida public radio station. John is a former political reporter for the Columbia, South Carolina State and the Daily Record in Baltimore. He has a bachelor's degree from Allegheny College and a master's degree from the University of Maryland. He was chosen as the South Carolina Press Association 2009 Journalist of the Year. We look forward to an engaging and informative discussion. Please help me welcome John to the podium.
Good morning. Good morning. So a quick word about format. I'm going to ask a few questions. We'd like to get some questions from you at the end. Candidates can add time, and we'll do some closing statements at the end. The time limit for everything will be a minute. In the back, we have some lights set up with a timer to try and give you guys a visual signal of how much time you have left. I don't see any need to introduce the candidates. We have 7 of the 9 candidates running for office today. You guys can read the name tags. We know who's here, who's not, and I think you guys are familiar enough with these candidates. So let us get started. I'm going to start the first question on the left with Lori Woods, and we'll just move down the line from left to right for the first question. A little open-ended, but I'm handing each of you a magic wand right now. You can use it to change one thing about the city. What would you change, and how would life in Miami be different after?
The main thing that I would change in the city of Miami is our public safety issues. I feel that we have an incredible community of people that would like to participate in our city that are unable to late at night. We have issues where we have parks that are not able to be used. We have issues where the streets are dark and desolate. There is so much that could be done so easily, and we could really realize a world-class city. When you look at all the other cities globally, when you look at the cities nationally, and you look at New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Chicago, well, Miami should be up there as a world-class city. Public safety is a massive issue here. It goes across in so many ways, not just from crime, but walking across the street. It's a multitude of things. Thank you.
Thank you. Grace Lara, same question. Give you a magic wand. One thing you would change, and how would life in Miami be different?
Okay, the first thing that I would change it would be public participation in the decision-making process of the government. 5 individuals in the city commission that cannot continue making decisions about our lives, about the impact of our quality of life and what they do without actually consulting us. I intend to change that. I intend to change that by creating the different beats in the different sections of District 2. Like, for example, the beat in the Grove, which has totally different needs for the Upper East Side, and the beat for the Upper East Side, and the beat for downtown Miami, because we need to listen to the people. We need for them to know exactly what is that the city is intending to do and how it's going to impact their lives. That is exactly what I'm going to do first thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Seth Clary?
I'd like to see the government of the city of Miami to be more open and transparent. What happens is now you have a lot of deals being made behind closed doors, back rooms, with special interests getting their way with lobbyists, and the people find out about it after the decisions have already been made. The city commission has public hearings and you get to talk for 2 minutes, but I've rarely seen anything ever change as a result of public participation at those meetings. So I'd like to open up the process and make it available for people to understand what's really going on. Millions and millions of dollars are being spent, and you don't get to participate in that decision-making process. The other thing is I would like to make Miami more people-friendly. For bicyclists, joggers, pedestrians, I want to make downtown Miami more beautiful. I'd like to do solves a lot of the traffic problems in the Brickell area. I'd like to have more of an educational magnet so that there would be good training for people.
Thank you. Mike Simpson?
For me, I'd like to see the city of Miami take more of a bottom-up than a top-down approach to managing our government. We've kind of neglected the roots of our city. We need better transportation, we need better infrastructure. We need places for the people that do the jobs in our city to live. We need a way for them to get to those jobs. We have to build that foundation to our city before we can continue to grow up and out, because without that foundation, eventually it's just going to crumble. I live in Coconut Grove, and about 2 years ago we had a moratorium on new business startups because the water and sewer system could not handle any more new businesses in the Grove, part of the Gables, and I think it even extended down as far as Pinecrest. We can't afford that kind of shutdown in our city as a whole. We need to make sure that we're building the foundation so that the city can grow on top of it.
Thank you. Teresa Sarnoff, a question for you. Magic wand, what one thing would you change and how would life be different?
A magic wand at the city of Miami, I would have it so the residents would enjoy the park spaces, they would be able to create their family memories. We are a cultural center. We would increase the availability and participation of culture. The bike paths would be networked, so we would have a constant flow for bikes, and we would have safe pedestrian crosswalks and pathways. And we would also be proactive on our traffic and transportation plans. We would have a master plan for the city of Miami, which it doesn't currently have. And we would have seamless transportation, where you can get off a trolley and get on another mode of transportation, a bus. You would be able to get to your destination through different modes of transportation. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken Russell?
Good morning, everybody. And just a moment to say thank you, John, and thank you for the Chamber for having us today. The magic wand question is where the genie would warn you not to waste your wishes, as people usually do. So all of the practical things that need solutions, homelessness, traffic, overdevelopment, these are things we don't need a magic wand for. These are things we can solve with positive solutions, working together, and good leadership. Magic wand wish would be something more lofty, like a really strong sense of ethics in City Hall and campaign finance reform. This is something that's a lot harder to achieve from the national down to the city level, but it's the root of what causes such difficulty in making decisions that affect our quality of life. So that would be my wish.
Thank you. And finally, Javier Gonzalez.
Anyone who's been to this knows my immediate answer is going to be flying cars. So if I get one wish, that's going to be flying cars for me. I think the biggest issue that we have, if I had one thing that I could do, would be housing. We are going to continue to lose brain drain because we can't put our young talent in the areas that they need to be in to be productive. That's the reality. We keep catering to an offshore and a very high level of individual net worth, when we really need more entry level, more affordable, not to use the word affordable, but what I call entry level housing. When you're coming into the housing, you're coming in. And a lot of the other solutions we can deal with. We can deal with the ethics, we can deal with transportation, we can deal with a lot of the other things that were mentioned, but we really have to prepare for our future, and I believe that it is in housing, and also we have to take care of our environmental. You know, that's something that we are overlooking. Thank you.
Well, I think you're in luck because if Back to the Future is accurate, the flying cars should be here tomorrow.
And the Cubs are coming to the World Series.
Okay, this question I'm going to start this time with Teresa Sarnoff. We'll again move left to right. When I drive through Brickell or downtown, I often run into road construction and building construction happening in the same place at the same time. It can make life for drivers miserable. So what can the city do to coordinate these activities and make life a little easier for commuters?
Like I said, we need a master plan for transportation in the city of Miami. And from that, when you have somebody coming in developing, then you would look for how it's going to affect the traffic patterns and what you can do alternatively, but make sure everybody's on the same page. Also, the same thing happens with events. The events are coordinated. You need to know everything that's going on so you can adjust the traffic and make sure there's a constant traffic flow. So I would have the master plan, I would have the meetings with the builders and make sure that we would have somebody that coordinates traffic within the city of Miami and follows through on this. Thank you.
Ken Russell?
To improve traffic downtown, the city really needs to work in enforcement. There's a lot of violation from construction companies, delivery companies, different people blocking lanes, using up lanes for staging areas, and this is up to the city to enforce. And once again, this is where we're in a growing pain, where we're trying to encourage a healthy growth, yet having the growing pain of what that brings to our congested streets. So really working with developers to make sure that they keep the lanes open, really doing the right studies to see that where we need parking, it's there, and where we need lanes flowing, it's there. So those are two of the big things.
Thank you. Javier Gonzalez?
I disagree with that. We really don't need to worry about construction, as construction will ebb and flow, so I think that's something that we shouldn't really be concentrating on. What we really should be looking at is the last mile. How do we solve the last mile? How do we get people from major transportation to their destination? I think that's something that, as a city, we can do, working with county officials and working with state officials to be able to do this. We tend to overlook the powers that we have as city commissioners. I hear a lot of promises that I know we can't make. So the reality of it is we need to be able to come to the table with county, with state, and say these are some of the solutions. If you look just at Brickell alone, it's city, county, and state roads. So we need to work on that last mile, and we also need to be realistic as to what we can accomplish as commissioners.
Lori, please.
Thank you. During construction, there will always be issues with transportation and traffic. Getting the word out and communicating how long it will be disrupted is where we're lacking. If we know that certain roads will be closed for 2 or 3 months, then we can work around it. In those settings, we want to have alternatives for parking, and we want to potentially have shuttles and look at using our trolley system or other ways to get people to different destinations. So much of it I think we can accept if there's communication to us so we know what to be prepared for and the timelines that we would have to make for our day.
Thank you. Grace Lars.
This is one thing that the city of Miami can remedy, and remedy very quickly. I remember 30 years ago, 40 years ago, because I've been living in the city for 55 years, when developers used to actually develop from their developer line inside into the property. Right now we have the developers taking, like for example, I'm going to give it to you, and you probably travel it every day, South Miami Avenue. When it gets down to South Miami Avenue and 8th Street, you have what it used to be a 3-lane street, actually narrowed totally, because the concrete blocks from city center actually eat up the entire street. And just the same way the city center is doing that, the other developers are doing the same. We can begin instructing the developers that they start doing their project from their property line inward and actually not taking the streets that are so necessary for traveling.
Thank you. Cecil.
Miami was originally laid out by Julia Tuttle and Henry Flagler, and the streets were narrow, so we have to live with that. We're not going to be able to do anything about that. But the problem is lack of planning for infrastructure improvement. I've seen over and over again the Jarrett Biscayne Boulevard sewers. Then another year later, they tear it up and they put lines under the street. What they need to do is to have a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, a 50-year plan to allow for what's going to be coming in the future. If you bury all the utilities to begin with, the sewers, the water pipes, the electrical, then you would have to tear them up every time you have new construction. The other thing is when a contractor goes to build a big high-rise building, what they do is they lease a lot, and there's less and less of them, but they'll lease a vacant lot and use that for their construction site. The problem is their trucks have to come out into the streets and they block traffic when they do that.
Thank
The
you.
other thing
Time's
is,
up. Thank you. Mike Simpson.
The biggest part of this is that these are not unforeseen issues. These happen every time we build something in Miami. There's always going to be trucks going in and out. There's always going to be construction materials. And the problem is that we're not holding the developers accountable at the planning stage. We need to ask them those questions before it even gets to the commission, when it's still in planning and zoning. Where are your trucks going to make delivery? What roads are they going to travel down? Where are you going to store your materials? Those should be part of the plan. That way, we know where it's going to be and we can effectively communicate to our neighbors what kind of impact it's going to have on them. And then after the fact, should they deviate from that, then we get into the enforcement part. But these are questions that aren't being asked now. I live in Coconut Grove and they're putting a restaurant into Peacock Park. And at that commission meeting, nobody asked the questions that I would have asked. Where are you going to put the dumpsters? You can't put them next to the children's playground. You know, these are things that every restaurant has a dumpster, but nobody's asking these questions. They're looking at the shiny building, they're looking at the progress, they're looking at and they're not looking at the path that we're taking to get there. And that has to happen up front.
Thank you. All right, this next question, we're going to start with Javier Gonzalez. Transportation is usually a federal and state issue, but Miami has been spending its own money on projects. Most notably, the city agreed to pay for half the cost of connecting Tri-Rail with Hollywood, Florida at Miami Central. Is this fair to city taxpayers? And do you think this is a wise transit investment?
I think one of the things that we have to do is we have to look at a big project when we're going to invest our money as a city. So I would have to say that I do believe that this is a good project and something that we should be involved with. The city has to come to the table with certain transportation funds. Every day, feds and the state offer less and less to supplement some of our costs, so we have to be prepared for it. That's why I think that the Transportation Trust that Francis has started, and also with the NPO, that's something that we have to continue to fund, continue to work with. It's a reality that we need these projects to come in. It's going to make it easier for us to move within our city. And again, like I mentioned earlier, development ebbs and flows, but transportation, we have to deal with big issues, we have to deal with major issues. So while we try to do some of the temporary fixes, we really need to do the long-term fix. So in this case, I would put our money in there, sometimes with the trolleys the same way, but we really have to draw a fine line as to how much we take away from county, and mostly county. County is a representative of our transportation, but any projects that we have funds, thank you.
Lori Woods.
Yes, I think that when you have people that come out in force to a commission meeting, begging everyone to find a way to make it work, it's what the people wanted, so yes, it's the right decision.
Grace Lars.
There's no question that we need to do something about transportation in the city. We've actually done the wrong thing. We've allowed development to go and then planning thereafter, when the whole thing should be the way around. Plan first and then construct. However, with reference to transportation, I do agree with Javier Gonzalez. I actually went to City Commission and I spoke the day that the Transportation Trust came up before the City Commission as a result of Commissioner Francis Suarez's initiative. And I do agree in concept that we need a trust, a transportation trust, so we can have some dollars and we'll be able to, at that point, have a place at the table in order to discuss issues of transportation when the Dade County, Miami-Dade County, seriously begins to take a look at what we need to do here. So yes, definitely, on the Transportation Trust, I agree with it. And the Tri-Rail. Is that what you said, the Tri-Rail or the Florida? Because there are two things going at the same time.
Miami shared the project with the agreed for half of connecting to railroads.
I think we created the monster. We need to mitigate the monster.
Thank you. Cescalari, what do you think? Is this a good deal for taxpayers?
Would you repeat the question?
Sure. Transportation, usually a federal and state issue, but Miami has begun spending its own money on projects. Most notably, the city agreed to pay for half the cost of connecting Tri-Rail with all aboard Florida and Miami Central. Is this fair to city taxpayers that they're footing more of the bill, or do you think that this is a wise transit investment?
You know, we pay taxes all over the place. We pay taxes to the city, to the county, to the state, and to the federal government. For years, we were blessed with Congressman William Layman, who was on the Transportation Committee in Congress, and he got a lot of that money back into Dade County so that we could build the expressways and things like that. But now we have to coordinate and have an intelligent plan. I solved my transportation problem. I ride a bicycle. I don't have any problem parking. I don't have any problem getting around town. I can get down from Coconut Grove to downtown faster than you can get from downtown to Brickell. So it just has to be all put together in an intelligent way. The city is constantly fighting with the county. The residents on Brickell want a left turn lane on 15th Road, left turn light, and it's the county that does it, not the city. And they're fighting for years with us. It just takes getting together and looking at it intelligently and having an intelligent plan.
Thank you. Mike Simpson.
I think that spending our tax money should be on things that benefit us. And I do believe that this particular project, that improving transportation in Miami is definitely a benefit to us. Probably one of the more important ones nowadays. But Miami can't do it alone. Our little 57 square miles sits smack dab in the middle of the metropolitan area. We sit in the middle of 24 other municipalities. We also are part of a county, we're part of the state, so we have to coordinate with all of them. But they're all ultimately spending our money. It doesn't matter which pocket it comes out of. The benefit needs to come to us. I think that specifically the All Aboard Miami, or All Aboard Florida is something that's going to benefit Miami, it's going to benefit us. And we should be looking into spending our tax money on things that directly benefit the people in our city. So yes.
Thank you. Teresa Sarno.
We all in Miami spend a lot of time on the roads, and it seems like we're spending more and more time. The average is supposed to be 30 minutes, but I swear it's longer than that on certain days. So we need to be proactive. There's less and less dollars from FDOT, and this coming up with a transportation fund puts us at the table and helps us drive this home. We have to get off the roads because we aren't going to be building any more roads. We don't have room for it. And we aren't going to be a double-decker on US 1 either. So we have to come up with transportation. We do this through, through rail, light rail. We can do it through the trolley. We can do it through other means, but we have to be connected. We have to be able to get off one mode of transportation and onto another to get to our destinations. This also includes the underline. Having an underline where you can cycle in and have bikes changing stations, which Miami 21 calls
Sounds
for.
good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ken Rosen.
Transportation is where the city has the smallest voice when you compare it to the county, the state, the federal. But it is the #1 thing that's affecting us. Our quality of life, our business, and transportation is where we need to have a voice at the table. And so I've heard many of my fellow candidates say that sometimes this is not a city issue because that's not our department, or transportation can't be solved, and I don't agree with it. I believe in thinking big, and I believe in being at the table. So you need a commissioner who's able to collaborate with all levels of government, and one of the greatest tools is for us to be invested in it as well. So yes, I believe the city should put its money where its mouth is. I do agree with the Transportation Trust Fund as a way to take that money from the right part of our taxes and use it properly. Yes.
Thank you. Next question, we're going to start with Grace Stellaris. This summer, Miami had a very public dispute about the best way to serve the homeless community here. How should the city work with local providers of homeless services, and what would those services look like?
We all have to work together. As a matter of fact, the issues why many things did not get done is because of personality problems between the different departments of the county, individuals in different part of the counties, and the DDA, and the trust, and things like that, that is not conducive to actually resolve issues in our city. We must all work together with looking at the objective, not looking at the personalities of the individuals. I think if we work together, and we intend to do that if elected, we are going to make tremendous strides with respect to the homeless issue in downtown Miami particularly, which is the one that is being affected mostly. But working together with the Homeless Trust, with the county and the city of Miami, with its own initiative, because the city of Miami is having its own initiative through Mayor Regalado, I think we're going to be making big strides.
$57 billion. There's about 5,700 homeless people on the streets of Miami. That means there's an availability of $10,000 for each one of these people. Now, you could give them a check for $10,000, or you could provide services for them. They need a place to live. Some of them need jobs. Some of them are have mental problems or drug problems, and they can't work. But they need to live, and they need to have a place to take a shower, a place to go to the bathroom. I mean, half the time you walk around downtown Miami, you can't even find a public bathroom for yourself, let alone if you're homeless and really have a problem. So you have to look at it humanely, and you have to have an overall plan. And I think that there's a lot that we can do, and we haven't done enough.
Makes sense.
One of the things we have to do is stop trying to reinvent the wheel. There are communities all across the country that have managed to find homes for instance, all of the veterans that are on the streets of their city. There are also cities who attempt to legislate homelessness out of their area. And they fall into two categories. Some are successful and some are not. And honestly, in the long run, it is absolutely cheaper from the government standpoint to provide services, provide care, and ultimately provide roofs for them than it is to try to make it illegal to be homeless, to sleep in public, to bathe on the shoreline, or whatever other laws that we saw this past year passed both in Miami and in Fort Lauderdale. Not to mention the fact that it's bad business. We get negative publicity. The city of Fort Lauderdale got national coverage when they passed those laws this past year. And that's bad for tourism, especially for cities like us in Fort Lauderdale who rely on that. So we need to stop trying to come up with solutions ourselves and use the ones that are already proven to work across the country.
Thank you. Teresa Sarno.
Homelessness is a multi-level problem in Miami, and it goes from everything from somebody who has just lost their house or their apartment and are on the street to the chronic homeless, which have a dependency problem or they have mental issues and they need help. So you can't just have permanent housing, you also have to have the different approaches of emergency overnight housing, bedding. And I believe that you have to do a multi-pronged approach and not just address it in one method. And I still think the MAP program was effective. We're having overnight stay for people on the street. I've been, for the stand down that the city just had, I was passing out flyers at midnight, and the same people I saw 3 weeks earlier were still in the same place, sleeping on the sidewalk. And we asked them if they wanted shelter, and they said yes, they do. So it's a multi-pronged approach. Thank you.
Ken Russell.
Thank you. The homeless issue is one where what you do is just as important as why you do it and how you do it. We first need to recognize that these are people that need to be taken care of. This is the priority. These are human beings. The byproduct of taking care of them will be cleaner streets, will be that our businesses won't be interrupted, will be that there is safety. But when you start with the why, when you start with the care, then the solutions become different, and the egos become different, and the conversation becomes different. I've already started helping repair that bridge with the Homeless Trust. I've been speaking with them. I visited Camilla's house. I will be visiting Chad. I don't agree with the MAP program. I believe that comes from the motivation of how do we get these people off the streets as fast as we can. And I believe there's best practices in the country that we can follow to get there. But we as the city don't have the strength to force what we want to happen here. This is where a situation with the county, they have the budget. We need to work together with them collaboratively. And that's what I intend to do.
Thank you. Javier Gonzalez.
I've said it before, we have to realize that this is a countywide problem, and this is a problem that we have to address together through the city and through county representatives. One of the other issues that we run into is a logistics aspect of it. So I think we need to be very, very broad as how we look at this problem and how we look at this situation. Obviously, compassion is the number one thing that we have to do. But we really deal with a chronic group of individuals that don't want to be in shelters. So that's really what you see a lot of on the street. So I think at the end of the day, first of all, we must address a countywide issue, make it a countywide concern, not just a downtown concern. Then move it from there to say, how are we going to resolve this as best we can? But understanding the logistics, all the services are in downtown. We don't have services out of here. So it's not like they're going to be kept in Kendall. So we really need to look at it globally. And as a city commissioner, I think it's critical that we work with counties. And I do agree that, you know, county is the answer for this. We just have to work with it.
Thank you. Lori Woods.
Housing is the real issue. There are not enough places for the people to go. We have wonderful service providers. We have the Homeless Trust. We have the Homeless Coalition, which coordinates and works on all of it. We have Camilla's house. We have so many places in Homestead. The problem we have is that we have a federal money that comes in, and it's for housing first. When we don't have houses to put people into, surround them with services, we can't move them out of shelters into housing. We can't move people into emergency space when there aren't enough beds for people. The money that we have, the $57 million, pays for a multitude of things, but we really have a housing issue in Miami. We have that from affordability for regular people, for homeless people, for our workforce housing. We really have to make some hard choices and determine how we're going to house all of our people.
Thank you. I'd like to turn it over to you guys in just a moment for your questions. I've got one more, but if you've got something you'd like to ask, get ready. After this time, we'll let you guys see what you're interested in. So, next question, I'm going to start with Mike Simpson. The Miami Heat and the county promised to build a public park on Parcel B as part of the deal to build the American Airlines Arena. What would you do to get the county to fulfill its promise, or should the county fulfill its promise?
Well, the county should fulfill its promise. Creating more green space along the waterfront in downtown is definitely going to be a draw. That's why we're building my museum park there where Bicentennial was. We need more green space on the water. Just a couple of days ago, several of us were invited by 5th graders to go clean up part of our shoreline. 5th graders from Coral Gables, as a matter of fact. And we realized that there isn't a lot of really public waterfront anymore. The only amount of beach we have left in the city of Miami is out on Virginia Key, really, and we really need to develop a public space where we can enjoy that aspect of it, because that's what people come to Miami for. And we seem to have farmed it out. If they want to see the water, they go to Crandon, they go to South Beach. They don't stay in Miami. But yeah, definitely we would have to work with the county and the heat to make sure that happens, and you just have to.
Time's up. Teresa, start off.
The population has doubled in the downtown, and so we need to have park spaces. We're very limited in what we can do. We have parcel D that is available for a park, and that should be turned into a park space. So I would encourage the county to make that into a park space. So we can add that to the museum park and have a nice waterfront park system. So I would encourage the county to do that.
Thank you. Ken Russell, would you encourage the county to do this, and how would you get them to deliver?
Absolutely. I mean, parks, green space and parks, we're in the lower half of cities, of major cities, in terms of green space per capita and space, and we shouldn't be. We're a city with round the year outdoor enjoyment, and we should be able to give that to our citizens. I'd definitely like to, commend the youth who have risen up and made Parcel B an issue, because that might have snuck through the papers if they hadn't gotten together and named it themselves as Dan Paul Park and really brought this to the forefront, because they're the ones who recognize that the city is their future, and if they want to have green space, they're going to have to fight for it. Well, they shouldn't have to fight. I think that the city, the county, we should be right there recognizing that without the green space, the buildings don't have value.
Javier Gonzalez.
Parcel D, Dan Paul Park. I think there was only 2 people that spoke out against Parcel D in a Cuban museum, the county commissioner. I know that I was one of them, and I believe Grace was there. This already has a plan and already has a park. It just has a Cuban museum that they want to attach to it. And I think Grace and I were, in June of last year, we were the only speakers out there speaking against it. So I think that a park is something that we're going to get. I believe that the county's referendum to get a Cuban museum on that site will probably not work, because through our efforts we were able to say that no public money was going to be used for this museum. And as such, knowing my people, I'm sure we're not going to raise $20 million. So I'm proud to say that if I have a win, that's one of my wins in the last year. Thank you.
Larry Woods.
Yes, it should be a park. We should continue to support more parks everywhere. We should thank the Downtown Development Authority for their interest in work going forward in connecting the Bayfront parks. There's so much that's actually happening that we are not aware of when it comes to our riverfront and parks and connectivity. And I think that all of us need to get more engaged and look at what's happening and work towards making even more.
Grace Lars.
When the city of Miami gave that land to the county, it was as a result of an agreement and negotiations with the county. If you read that agreement, and I've read it innumerable times, it says specifically that Parcel B will be a park and nothing other than a park. So what will I do? I will contact the mayor of the county and the commissioner of the area and say, gentlemen, lady, because I believe it is Commissioner Edmondson, it is time that the county complies with the agreement, a signed agreement when this land was sold to the county back in the 1990s. So yes, I would make him comply with the contract, because there is a breach of contract right now as it exists.
Seth Clary.
I've been a strong proponent of Dan Paul Park, and been some demonstrations to make it happen. two things have to happen. Number one, we have to have a plan for what's going to be put there, and number two, we have to get the county to free up the money and just do it. And I certainly would like to see it done before Skyrise Miami blocks the view.
Do we have questions from the floor?
So the city of Miami is selling the only public parking garage in Coconut Grove to a developer. How do you all propose to make up this parking for the major festivals we have all the time in the Grove so people can actually come and enjoy the festivities? I offer that to the gentleman.
Let's start with Seth Clare.
Well, I let people park on my lawn during the festivals. I think it's terrible. They extorted money from every business owner in Coconut Grove to build a parking garage, a parking trust fund there. And now they give it away to their buddy David Martin. You need more parking area in the Grove. At the Playhouse, there's going to be some parking. And there needs to be a couple of more places for parking in there. But to give away public facilities to private developers, I think is horrendous. And I think that this is the kind of thing that I'm running for to stop.
Mike Simpson.
That's actually just the latest loss of parking in the Grove. About 4 or 5 months ago, they finished re-bricking Commodore Plaza, and in the middle of the plaza, we lost 6 spaces on either side of the road. When they re-bricked the sidewalks around the Mayfair and Cocoa Walk, we lost parking spaces there. It seems like every improvement we have, we lose some public space, and it goes to a wider sidewalk so that now a cafe can have tables outside. And that comes from the top down. Those are the deals that are being made in the back rooms, and it's, the people who own that property, that are interested in that property, some of them aren't even the owners, but it would be more attractive if those parking spaces. And that comes with the ethics of the person that's sitting in that chair, the people that are sitting on the dais. You have to realize that businesses suffer if people can't get to their doors. As far as
Time's up. Thank you. Teresa Sarno.
That parking garage has become more important. Historically, it's been underutilized because of the Coconut Grove Bank parking. But now with the construction going on there is less parking, and so that's been, the parking garage on Oak has been heavily utilized. And now to sell it is precipitous, because even though they're planning on building 2 new parking garages, we don't have them yet. So you're taking away that parking garage before an alternative is available. And I think the timing is not good on that front. I think that was a mistake.
And Russell.
I wish you had mentioned that to Mark.
It's not his decision, it's the MPA.
This is a perfect example of where a decision is being made logistically improperly and ethically improperly. There's a bidding process that should go on that didn't happen correctly. This happened very quickly. We're talking about the Oak Avenue garage in the Grove, which is very neat. And coming from a business owner, it's very strange for me to say, but very true in what I believe, that the city shouldn't be run like a business for profit. These garages are a service to our community, and the Grove, which survives a lot on its events, this is when those garages are needed. And now that finally the businesses are starting to grow into that Mayfair area, from the Indian restaurant, the bookstore, and the Grove, we need that parking. And it's actually a beautiful, large parking garage with city rates and street side rates, and that's a great thing. But the way this deal is being done, if you really dissect it and look at it, it's not right.
Thank you.
But it's done by the Miami Parking Authority. It's not under the commissioner.
Javier Gonzalez.
Very few times do I agree with Teresa, but in this one it is an MPA issue. It's Miami Parking Authority issue. When they build a garage and they can make 10, 12 million bucks on it, their goal and their job is to bring money to the city of Miami, and this is one way of doing it. Now, was it a popular choice? No. Was it a choice that was done incorrectly from a sales standpoint? Yeah, they could have done a better PR job with it. There is plenty of parking. I have my office there. I have my office in Grove Square. There's plenty of parking in Mayfair, just people don't want to use it. So I think that from a populist standpoint, you can get up there and all outrage and go, this, was done incorrectly. There were 3 bids. When you get a bid for $16 million in a garage, you're going to look at it. That's just the reality of it. Now, the other thing, though, that we need to be more concerned about is that because of Miami 21, this parking garage now may be used for extra parking for Park Grove. That's a bigger concern, and that's something that a city commissioner should look at, because now they may be able to get parking waivers on their building. Thank you.
Larry Woods.
We need to overhaul the communication from our city to our constituents. If there is more visibility, if it's easy to understand what's going to be happening next door, around the corner, then the public gets the opportunity to get involved and to communicate their desires. If we can have communication and back and forth, then we can all own our city and we can have what we are looking for rather than what's being done to us.
Chris Lars.
Yeah, I would actually look at how to be able to rescind that contract, because there were 3 bids made, and Mr. Noriega has been on the newspaper saying there was another bidder that was a higher amount that was bidding for. But since David Martin had come to him first, then he decided to give him the contract. That's not the way it works, ladies and gentlemen. The bidding process is in order for the city to get the most amount of money, or in this particular case, the parking authority. And although I heard that the parking authority is semi-autonomous, the city of Miami approved its budget. So they need to respond to the city. I would immediately go in and review the process that this whole deal went through, and if that contract can be rescinded, I intend to
All right,
rescind it.
Next person in the back.
My name is Diana Lee, and I'm representing Miami Rowing and Water Sports Center. As you know, there is a big construction site at the Marine Stadium happening now for the boat show. And we're hugely suffering, by driving there, and there's multiple, shutdown warnings. What is your vision regarding Marine Stadium and Miami Rowing Club that is housing 100 students from, all over Miami?
Start with Ken Russell.
As a tenant there, the Miami Rowing Club has been in a difficult spot with this situation because they want to renew their lease. They want to keep that space, and that's exactly the type of use that Virginia Key and the basin there should be used for passive entertainment sporting and enjoyment of the environment. The way this boat show has been bulldozed through here, literally, is affecting everybody from Key Biscayne to here. We're involved in lawsuits. And I think that the Miami Rowing Club is now feeling as well the pinch of that, and I hope they can work it out. I hear they're getting possible access through Mast Academy, which may at least help them access the use of the facility during this time. That's great short term, but you should be worried long term. What if a mooring field's put in there because it's profitable for that basin, for the city, that's going to not let you use it? I ran a charity event in that basin this year with the Orange Bowl Paddle Committee and and that's what it's meant for. It's not meant for this large-scale development.
Thank you. Javier Gonzalez.
The boat show doesn't meet the Virginia Key Master Plan that was agreed to publicly and vetted publicly in 2010. So the boat show should not be there. There is no reason for it to be there outside of a money grab. And again, I believe that a linear park and the passive use of the park is the way to go. This is what the public wanted. This is what the public discussed. This is what the residents needed. And this is something that is an overreach by the city commissioners. And I believe very, very strongly that in this case, we have to have the stones to stand up and say, this isn't the right way to do this. So it doesn't conform to the master plan. It isn't what the residents want. Why the heck are we putting this thing there? So I agree completely. Let the rowing club be. Let this become the linear park that it was promised to be. And let it be used for passive use as it is the Virginia Key Master Plan. Thank you.
Lori Woods?
Quality of life has so much to do with our public spaces and our parks. And this is a case where we need to protect, it's environmentally sound to protect this and to keep it the same.
Grace Lars?
Yeah, I participated in every single meeting that took place with respect to the Virginia Key Master Plan. The first one happened at the Rosendale School for Oceanography, and then many, many others happened thereafter. And then finally in June of 2010, the master plan, the Virginia Key Master Plan, was passed. What's happening right now over at the is absolutely direct violation. It is violative of what the Virginia Key Master Plan actually was passed and was approved by the city of Miami. So with respect to the rowing club, I think it should be respected, it should be working at all times. I know many children that go there rowing, many from Belen, from many other schools. So with respect to the boat show, a violation of the master plan outright, and it should not be there.
That's clear.
I think that the area around Marine Stadium and Virginia Key should be used for non-motorized aquatic sports. And I think that the stadium should be reused or rebuilt to accommodate music venues, and that's it. The boat show doesn't belong there. I work strongly with the Biscayne Bay Coalition, the Sierra Club, and we don't think that's an appropriate venue. It's dangerous to the Bill Sadowski Critical Wildlife Area. It's going to do tremendous damage to the bay bottom, and it's the wrong place for it. I support the boat show. I think it's a wonderful economic engine for the city. I've worked at the boat show for 30 years, but it doesn't belong on Key Biscayne, and I think that the Army Corps of Engineers is going to still weigh in on it because they still don't have a permit to put it there.
Mike Simpson?
It's a little difficult to figure out a way to be the sixth guy to say give the same answer. It's absolutely going to be devastating for this area. Not just for that it's going to create another tennis weekend for the residents of Key Biscayne, for them to have to slog through getting in and out of their homes, which is why Key Biscayne is in the process of suing the city over that. But the plans that are in place to alleviate some of that by running water taxis from downtown or out there means that they're going to be increasing the motorized traffic through manatee habitats past the mangroves. And these are natural resources. And like I said earlier, our natural resources in the city are going away. We have very little of them left. Everything is being developed out, and we can't get it back once it's gone. So this is something we definitely have to oppose, we definitely have to fight against, because if we lose this fight, we lose this part of our natural bay, then it's not coming back.
Thank you.
To find a way to keep it here, and that being said, that area, Marine Stadium, is not the place for it. That area is too small, there's not good access for getting in and out, and that the numbers are too great for that area. And it's a great natural resource for us. Our natural resource resources are becoming limited because they're becoming so expensive. As the real estate in Miami keeps climbing, our parklands become more valuable, and we need to keep them just that. We need to keep them parklands. They aren't meant to be event spaces. They're meant for the residents and visitors to enjoy them, to have a place to go to have our kids growing, and be out in the outdoors and enjoy the water. So we need to protect that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question here in front still.
Yeah. The topic of housing has come up during this event, and I'd like to hear from those who are participating, what would you do to incentivize and facilitate the building of workforce housing in Miami? We talk about transportation, we talk about the housing issue. They're linked. With the workforce not finding a place to live, an affordable place to live in the core, they're moving to the suburbs and having to commute back. So building affordable and workforce housing within the city limits is of utmost importance. How would you incentivize and facilitate the building of workforce housing in the city of Miami?
Let's start with Lori Woods.
I would make sure that we do inclusionary zoning, and that if a developer was not able to do that on a certain project, that they would pay into a housing trust, and the money from the housing trust would go to offset affordable housing and workforce housing. I think that we have to really look at multiple levels of housing and zoning. We have to look at more absolutely affordable housing as well as workforce housing. And I think that when we're looking at development, we have Miami 21 that we always have to have and understand, and there we have parking issues. So there are some smaller developments that can be done where we change a setback or we offset something in order to make it more affordable. So we have to get a little bit creative, and we have to look at it neighborhood specific. And with that in play, we should be able to start putting some workforce housing out there. I think what Wynn was doing with some of the smaller units is an area where it's potentially profitable, but you've got to look at what the square footage build out is as well.
Grace Lars.
Yes. With respect to affordable housing, that's one of the aspects of what's called smart growth. Smart growth gives you, what requires you is, it's got about 10 items on it. One of them is a choice of transportation, the choice of housing, and parks. So when you are just about ready to start a development, and this is one of the things that I would like to implement, you're going to have the developer who comes in, not just simply building luxury condominiums. There's going to have to be an integration of all those items that you just mentioned, the workforce housing. I was reading in Seattle, and Seattle has actually created a very smart issue. It creates a hub of transportation wherein they build all kinds of workforce housing without parking. Why? Because they have all kinds of transportation. They have the light rail. They have the buses there. You know where I'm going, the right way.
Repeat the question, please.
Repeat the question.
How would you facilitate and incentivize the building of workforce and affordable housing in the city, given that the workforce of the city is having to move outside of the city and commute back, only exacerbating the transportation problem? So how would you facilitate, incentivize that building of workforce housing and affordable housing in the city?
Well, one of the ways to do it is by design. You design smaller units that are affordable. You have subsidized units which people can afford. You require builders to build smaller units in the bigger developments. You know, when they built Brickell, the rule was they're supposed to have 10% set aside for affordable housing, smaller units or affordable units. The developers came back to the city and said, oh, well, we'll do that, but we're not going to, can we do it someplace other than Brittle? Can we put the affordable units over in Overtown? And, you know, they built some of them, but it didn't really happen. Elizabeth Plitter Soderberg and Andres Twani from the University of Miami School of Architecture have come up with ideas for the new urbanism, where you have smaller units for teachers and firefighters and workers in the bigger units. So you used to have what they call mother-in-law's quarters.
Thank you.
This is something that the people that live in our community are kind of doing themselves without our help. You get 4 people living in a larger unit. You get roommates. Previously didn't even know each other. There is a movement across the country to go towards smaller housing. We just, as the city government, need to make sure that we are encouraging that by the developers that bring plans to us. Right now, we're planning by exception. Somebody comes in and goes, yes, I know that area is zoned for this density, but it would be more profitable for me if I could go 10 more stories. If I could do 4 units per floor instead of 10. If I could, and that's where the city has to go, no, that won't be good for our community. I actually was at a county commission meeting where I heard a contractor basically scolding the commission because the only contracts he could find were either Section 8 or $1 million condos. They weren't planning anything in between. And that comes from the top down. The planning and zoning plan has to be there and it has to be enforced by the city.
Mrs. Arnold.
The city operates on multiple levels of people, and we have many luxury condominiums, units built already, and developers are starting to build rental units, recognizing the need for that. But we have to have workforce housing, we need to have affordable housing, we need to have attainable housing. And so we need to plan for this, and you would do this through inclusionary zoning, which would require the developers to set aside a certain percent for this type of housing. But you would also develop around the mass transit development, and you would have, such as on Douglas, 27th Avenue, where you would have affordable units with the mass transit available, so they can take the mass transit, which would save them if they rid themselves of a car, save about $9,000 a year. Thank you.
Ken Russell.
Thank you, Charles. It's a great question. Affordable housing is so important if you want the city to not just be a facade of a metropolis, but to actually have the guts within it where people can live. And the soul of our city is our workforce, our young professionals, and the entire spectrum of affordable housing that's absolutely necessary. What's needed is the will of the commission. And if they are open to prioritizing that level of housing, things will happen because the tools are available to them. I've spoken with the affordable housing developers who say they're not getting support from the city. At the county level, they're seeing support, but at the city, there seems to be a priority on high-scale luxury development, which has its place at the table, but we need to absolutely balance that with affordable housing. Tools like a proper use of our CRA, for example, where it's used to eliminate some of the blight through the building up from the bottom up and incentivizing affordable housing to developers. Neighborhood development is going to overlay an area that really limits what developers can do and incentivizes them in a proper way. It's just the will of the commission.
Thank you. Javier Gonzalez.
This was the Imagine One question. And my answer, it's very, very difficult, very complex. We mentioned inclusionary zoning. You have to understand what that really does and what that includes and what that amounts to. We talked about workforce housing. Half the people don't even know what workforce housing is or entry-level housing is, because they don't know the AMIs and all the percentages. I think a couple of things from a real estate standpoint that we see is that a lot of the projects are already up and running. All of the transit projects are already committed. A lot of them are already at 27th on Douglas Road. Those have already been bid out. And they're all going to be market rate products. They're not going to be something that is affordable. Market rate is, well, whatever, $2,000 a month for a one-bedroom think what we need to do also is figure out how we can make lending accessible to young families and young folk. And I think that's one of the things that we lose. We tend to not be able to finance properties, and then the builders can't build properties. And then the other thing too that we need to look at is Miami 21. Miami 21 is a spot zoning building code. So again, there are tools in place. It is extremely difficult.
I think we have time for one more quick question. Anybody?
So we have a new zoning code, as you mentioned, in Miami 21, which has been very level for the developers. In addition to that, now there is a request to upzone several of our neighborhoods, Wynwood and the area around the Performing Arts Center. Would the members of the group support upzoning in these neighborhoods?
Start with Teresa.
The zoning in Wynwood is putting the onus on the local bid for building. And so they're trying to keep the flavor of their neighborhood the same with a warehouse-type feel, the meatpacking district feel. And so they are pretty much controlling their destiny. And as far as upzoning in what other areas would you say?
So the area just northwest of the Performing Arts Center, and I think Wynwood is also, the developers trying to upzone the Wynwood neighborhood.
Right. I think you need to keep the character of the neighborhood. Wynwood is a fun, edgy neighborhood that we should maintain the character of, as opposed to upzoning it. So I believe we have to maintain the character of the neighborhoods. Thank you.
Ken Russell.
I disagree a little bit. I believe in Wynwood specifically, what they're looking for is to be able to create the density that would attract the type of residents that would enjoy that community, and to make it affordable, and sometimes that's necessary. There's definitely not enough of a residential element in some place like Wynwood right now, so the overlay that they've basically just achieved is really going to help them in the next step of organic development, which, I mean, in my opinion, Wynwood is a perfect example of a good growth, a good development of a neighborhood.
Javier Gonzalez.
Upzoning comes up all the time, and one of the things, we look at certain areas where upzoning will work, but let's take a look at Ladana or in the Village West, which is the west side of Coconut Grove. And one of the things that we're trying to come up with, at least I'm trying to come up with, is some type of trust situation where we can protect some of the fabric and some of the character of the small properties and the small unit owners. And what happens is a lot of times the builders come in and overrun these neighborhoods because it's easy to do. It's very simple to do. I mean, I can look at a map and play risk and start to say, this is my first parcel, this is my second, and this is my fifth. What happens is the community has nothing to defend itself with. So what we're trying to do is create some type of housing trust that will protect certain types of home ownership, where a little house in Little Havana that has a bad roof, maybe we could help these people out. Something that is not a government current entity, and this is the only way, because if not, guys, the builders know how to play this game, and they will play it to the very, very end. And we also have a pro-commission, we have a pro-development commission, so that's important.
Thank you. Lori Woods.
I think we need to protect our neighborhoods. When you go to great cities, one of the major things that you find are specific neighborhoods. You have a flavor, you have a fabric. Chicago is one of the most wonderful places to travel into because of not only the transportation, but the connectivity through transportation to get to different neighborhoods. Each neighborhood has stakeholders, there are community leaders. We should be going there and protecting and standing up to bullying development, but in some cases, upzoning works, and I think we have to look at it on a per-case basis.
Grace Lars.
Yes. Upzoning must take into consideration what impact it's going to have in the surrounding neighborhoods. That is the reason why I said at the beginning that I will make the people part of the decision-making process of the government, and that I will actually make a smart growth committee, create a smart growth committee in order to have, when issues like this come up, have the entire community come together and actually have a say-so what's going to happen in their community. So it's like Lori said, a case-by-case basis, but certainly always taking everyone's opinion into consideration with respect to upzoning. Thank you.
Sessler.
There's a lot of things to be considered here. There are some good ideas. They went to Holland and got some ideas for pedestrian-friendly streets and cut-throughs and things like that. You have to maintain a certain scale, and I think Wynwood is an ideal place to have a good starting point. But Wynwood is also a warehouse area. So by eliminating warehouses, you have to put these businesses somewhere else. And what's happened is there's millions of square feet of warehouse now in Doral and in Medley. And so those trucks have to go on 836 back and forth to bring things into Miami. So you have to figure out, make a comprehensive plan, not just, well, okay, we need for housing, which we do, but you also need for warehousing, and you need a development of scale. I brought in a plan from
Mike Simpson, you get the last word.
All right. We just have to make sure that the folks that are making the decisions at the top are not using profit strictly as their yardstick. We see a lot of plans that hit planning and zoning and go before the commission where somebody is going to build a neighborhood. You can't build a neighborhood. Neighborhoods develop over time. Nobody built Greenwich Village in New York City. It became what it was over time. And it's the same thing with the Grove. The Grove has a character of its own, and nobody can manufacture that. So if you're going to make changes to zoning, if you're going to change, as Seth pointed out, warehousing to residential so that people can live in the Wynwood area, you just have to make sure that it's for the betterment of the community that's there, and not something that's strictly, well, the guy I play golf with will make $2 million if I pass this.
Well, that is all we have time for. I'd like to thank the candidates for their time this morning. Thank the Greater Miami Chamber of Commerce for hosting us, and thank you guys for all your great questions.